So you ready?
I'm ready.
Well, today we got Erik Gardner. He's the owner or CEO of Volunteer Rid-A-Pest. I think that's the one that Carl Collins' sister used to own, but I'm not sure. We're going to find out. It's going to be a great discussion. Boy, it's nice out there today, isn't it?
It is beautiful.
Was it about 63?
I think so.
Well, shouldn't we be doing something outside?
Well, I was earlier, but...
What'd you do?
Well, I was outside with my son. He plays baseball over at Cleveland High School.
Oh, what grade's he in?
He's a senior.
A senior? Golly. What's his name?
Tyler.
Tyler.
He's the youngest of 5, so...
You got 5 kids?
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
I do. I didn't know when to quit.
5 kids.
Whenever you read a story in the newspaper or see something on television about somebody getting arrested, you naturally assume they're guilty. Unless the story's about you or someone you love, then you'll think differently. And you'll want a lawyer who will defend you. My name's Scott Canavis. If you or someone you love has been charged with a crime, call me. I'll return your phone calls, I'll work on your case, and I will defend you.
I know your brother real well, Brad. I went to school with him. What's he doing now?
He lives up in Loudon. He has a pest control company up there.
Same.
He started his own, you know.
Is that right?
He didn't want to be involved as a young man, and so I was the only brother that stayed. I've got an older brother, too. I'm the only one that stayed, and so I worked with my dad. My dad could be a little hard to work with. He's very determined. He wanted things done his way. There was Billy's way and the wrong way.
Oh.
And so, my dad's name is Billy, by the way. And so he and I worked pretty well. I knew, kind of had a role with it. My brothers did, and they got into confrontations, and so they left. My older brother's now the plant manager at the Flowers Bakery. And my younger brother, of course, lives in Loudon, and he started his company probably 10 years ago. He worked at the carpet mills in Dalton for years and years, and then finally decided to go into pest control. He worked with us some, you know, and everything we had in Georgia, I let him do. And so, but when he decided to move up to Loudon, he started his own company. It's called East Volunteer Pest Control. And so they're not associated with us, but I gave him advice through the years, and so they're doing fine. I think they have a couple of employees.
He was always a good guy.
Yeah.
I had a 6th grade with him, I believe. 6th grade.
Yeah.
At E.O. Ross.
Yeah, he went over there.
Yeah. Well, we had a bad teacher. I can't remember her name. She was bad.
Probably better you don't remember.
I cannot remember her name. It was a bad teacher. She paddled people all the time.
Oh, wow. I couldn't get away with that
No, you couldn't. But back then, boy, she used to just paddle everybody for
So you may not learn much, but you're well-disciplined, huh?
Well, she paddled all the time. It was crazy. It's crazy. I can't remember her name. So, was your dad, did he start the pest control?
He did.
Now, that's not the one owned by Carl Collins' sister, is it?
No. We bought them out 3 years ago.
Oh, that's where I've got that
ago.
confused.
Yeah.
What was that?
Pest Away.
Pest Away.
Yeah.
I never met her, but I remember Carl telling me that. So y'all bought her out.
Yeah.
And so now you're Rid-A-Pest.
Yeah. Well, we've always been Volunteer Rid-A-Pest. My dad came up with that name back in the 70s. We were Volunteer Exterminating, but exterminating started not to sound so good, so he incorporated Rid-A-Pest in so we could move into other areas if we wanted to and drop them in, like into Georgia. Volunteer's a strong brand in Tennessee, not so much in Georgia.
So is that a franchise?
No, it's just a name he came up with in 1970, so this has been a long time ago.
Was he originally from Cleveland?
No, he was born in the mountains of northeastern Tennessee in a place called Lost Mountain.
Where's that at?
It is in Greene County and up above Knoxville, up in the Tri-Cities area. But
close to let's see, what's the name of that
Greenville is the county seat there of Greene County.
place?
You've heard of
Yes, Greenville. Isn't that funny, Glenn? We was talking about Greenville on the way.
Yeah. Well,
Isn't that funny how...
my mom grew up in Greenville. My dad grew up in the mountains, so he is kind of a hillbilly. He grew up in a house that had no electricity, no running water.
Is that Cocke County?
No, it's actually in Greene County, but it's close.
You know where Cocke
Oh
County
yeah,
is?
yeah. I've been to Newport in that area.
Newport.
Yeah.
Well, that's a rough area, isn't it?
It is, and my dad knew a lot of those guys. He grew up pretty hard scrabble.
Let me tell you a story I had. I was eating with some guys one Sunday morning at the Shoney's, and they said, "What are you doing today, Dee?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go up and look at a piece of property up in Cocke County." And the guy next to me said, he was in his 80s, he said, "You better be careful up there." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Believe me, you better be careful." And I said, I'm just going up there. He said, "I don't care. You better be careful." Well, anyway, so I go up there, and I got lost. And I ended up on a dead-end road, and a car pulled up behind me. And I remembered what he said. I think they were chopping cars up or whatever. And so I went like this, on that little dirt road and left and got down to a gas station. And I said, "Hey," I said, "I just came from up there." I said, "What's the deal up there?" And the guy at the cash register said, "Oh, we don't go up there." That was something.
Yeah, well, my dad worked that area because when he got out of the military, he went to work for Orkin Exterminating. That's how he got started in pest control. And he said he worked Cocke County. He said you always had to make sure you called and let them know before you came so that they could alert family, relatives, because they just didn't they had moonshiners back in there and probably some other
Probably
various
marijuana or something.
illegal activities.
Or cars, whatever it is.
Yeah, they had a lot of stuff going on probably shouldn't have, but it's so rural back there, they get away with it.
It's their only income, I guess.
But they had to watch who came in and who came out because they, wanted to give the heads up.
This guy told me the IRS didn't even go in there.
Yeah, I've heard that. They go in, but they might not come out.
So that's up, but that's next to where your dad was.
Yeah, they
from
are
Greene County.
adjoining counties.
Yeah.
But my dad, he grew up pretty tough upbringing. Not much money, and they didn't have a car for a long time. He'd walk to school, walk to church, and walked everywhere he went, and helped. Did farm work, and they would if a neighbor got their barn roof blown off, the neighbors would all band together and go fix it. And that's just how they took care of each other.
That was Appalachia, is what they call it.
Appalachia, yeah, southern end of Appalachia.
What in the world brought him to Cleveland, Tennessee?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. He, when he went to the military, he had never lived in a place that had running water and electricity until he went to the military. The military barracks is not supposed to be a step up, but in his case it was. And when he was in the military, he had the fortune of knowing a guy, I forget his name, but anyway, his family had a business. And so they lived in a nice house and had all the finer things in life from his point of view. And so he asked him, how did you guys do that? How do you live in such a nice place? He showed him a picture of his house. And of course, my dad lived in a 4-room house with a leaky roof, And so he said, well, my dad has his own business. So it kind of gave my dad that burn to own a business of his own. So he didn't know how, he didn't know when. He just made up a decision when he was in the military, I'm going to do it. When I get out at some point, I'm going to have my own business. So he got out of the military in, I think it's 1960, and he had already married my mom while he was still in the military. He got out, went to Greenville, and got a job with Orkin. And so he rose through the ranks there. He started out as a salesman, didn't know anything about sales. One of those things, you learn by necessity.
Yeah.
If you want to make any money, you better learn real quick how to make a sale. So he did. After a couple of years, he was good at it, so they transferred him to Chattanooga. And he was the manager of the Chattanooga office. And so he was pretty good at sales, so he would hire people, and there's a lot of stories. Moore Exterminating, I don't know if you're familiar with Arnold Moore.
No.
He owned Moore Exterminating for probably 25 years.
In Cleveland?
In Polk County, actually. But my dad hired Arnold at Orkin back in 1966. So a long time ago, but that relationship turned into me buying Moore Exterminating in 2006. because they'd known each other through the years. And anyway, my dad wanted to start his own business, and so he was working for Orkin in Chattanooga. He did well there. They made him the office manager in Oak Ridge. And so this is in the 60s. He was manager of the year in the entire company of Orkin in 1969. And so they made him this really good deal. They wanted him to be the manager of the Memphis office. Move the whole family out to Memphis, take over an office 4 times larger for the same money. And he said,
a guy from Greene County.
he said, I don't really want to do that. That's a lot more work for no more money and move my family. By that time, my older brother's in 1st grade. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. And so he knew that was the time. He's going to start his own business. So when he was in Chattanooga, he worked a lot in Cleveland. And he knew something very important about Cleveland. They only had one other company.
Fred Harned.
Actually, Bob Harned, Fred's dad.
I knew Fred.
But yeah, Fred and his dad, that was the only competition. So he thought, okay, got one competitor other than the big national companies. He said, that's going to be it. Cleveland, Tennessee. If I ever go into business, it's going to be in Cleveland. Well, the opportunity came up. Mom and Dad packed us up, moved to Cleveland, bought a house. First thing they did.
Whereabouts?
It's out in Hopewell. My mom, actually, she doesn't live there anymore. She's over at Remember Me now. But they bought a house out on Camellia Drive out in Hope Acres in 1970. And I asked my dad later, I said, well, you're starting a business. You got 0 customers.
Right.
First thing you do is buy a house.
Yeah, how's that?
Seems kind of strange, maybe rent a while. He said, no, he said, I had no intention of not making it work. He said, I bought the house, we're planning on staying, and we made it work. There was no plan B.
Was that his military upbringing or his Greene County upbringing?
I think it's probably both. When you have nothing, your only way to goes up. And so he was just that determined. I think, looking back on it, my dad's probably the most determined guy I've ever known. I mean, he just set his mind to something, and he's not going to quit until
Can you bar the door?
He had a patent where he invented a new type of deer stand for deer hunting because he was a big hunter. And he told me, I'll back up a little. He told me when he's a kid, he said, if we wanted meat when I was a kid, he said, there was no money to go to the market. So we got our guns, we went out back in the woods and had to find it. And that's not my great-great-grandfather telling me that. That's my dad. That's just the way he grew up. And so he just had if you needed something, you found out a way to get it. And
how old would he be today?
He would be 89.
89.
He died when he was 68.
So that's about 10 years older than my dad. So that was the difference in the eras.
Yeah, and both my grandparents were teenagers when he was born. So, I mean, they were starting young. I think they're both 19 years old.
Yeah, that's young.
And lived in just a house that one of their families, I guess my grandfather's family had. Just, move over in that old empty house there, and it had a leaky roof and not much else. It was shelter.
You ever go back to that place?
I was there. We'd go there when I was a kid, and then went back there. I was probably 19, 20, and saw it. By that time, my dad and his brother, my uncle, had put their money together and had put a bathroom in for my grandmother. And so she did have indoor plumbing for the last probably 10 years of her life. But until then, her entire life was... Electricity did come through, I think, in the late 1940s, but it consisted of a receptacle on the baseboard and a bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling with a pull chain.
Like on Green Acres. They had just the one...
That's pretty much what it looked like. You just pulled the cord in
and
the
they
middle.
didn't work all that well anyway.
Not that well, and you had to constantly replace light bulbs and the receptacles. They had fuses.
Put a penny behind the fuse.
It was a very rudimentary electric system.
You remember putting pennies behind the fuse?
Yeah, they kind of defeat the purpose of the fuse. But,
but it worked.
Yeah, you'd get your power back.
So he stayed active till about when?
He was active in the business until he died. He was 68 years old and had a heart attack back in March of 2003. 2003. So it's been now almost 22 years ago.
Was you running it then?
No, he and I were working together. It was a 2-man operation. I was the workforce.
So the other brothers said,
By that time, they had gone their separate ways, and it was just he and I. And
why'd you stay with him?
I saw the potential of the business. I saw what other companies had done.
Were you more like him than the others?
No, I think I was more like my mom, and I could get along with him. My brothers are more like him, and
Oh, you
heads.
placated him somewhat.
I could roll with it a little bit. And I was at that time, I don't know if you remember the first time you and I met.
Don't remember.
Okay, your uncle, Joe Owenby,
Joe Owenby?
was building a house for me. I was 21 years old.
Oh man, let's see. Let's fall. Where was that at? I worked on every house he built.
In Wynwood subdivision.
Wynwood subdivision in the back,
Right.
in the cul-de-sac.
Yep. Right there where the Target is now. Back in those days, that was out in the country.
I was just a kid.
I was 21. I graduated in 1982. And so you would have been a couple of years behind me.
I was about, I remember I was picking up nails
Yeah.
because I thought they could reuse them. I didn't know that carpenters didn't have time for
Yeah,
all
I remember
that.
you would come over and clean up, and I'd be over there looking to see what they got done. You'd be over there cleaning up.
All the
And
time.
so, yeah, we got to talking back then. So
Isn't that funny? I don't remember that specifically, but I
Well,
remember the house.
Yeah, that was.
I bet
all-
I didn't know you was Brad's brother
You
at
probably
the time.
didn't, because I didn't really know you. I just knew we talked a little bit, and you said Joe was your uncle, and you were just, maybe still in high school, just got out.
Still in high school. I worked for him from the time I was 14 to the time I was 20, and he never built a house that I didn't work on.
Yeah.
It's funny what you learn
Oh, yeah,
by just being with him. He wouldn't never let me do much work, carpenter, and just clean up, and it irritated me. But I realized at the time I was learning what he was doing, which was management and cleanup.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that the manager, you manage and you clean up, but you don't do the things that much in the middle?
Yeah. You just make sure everything's done correctly, and then go behind. Well, that gave me an interest in building houses. Just him watching how he did it, because he was really good at it. I mean,
He was tight, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was
tight.
So tight he squeaked when he walked.
He was so
I mean,
tight, he squeaked. Man, he was so tight.
But he was a good manager, and he knew the right people to hire, and so that's what I was doing, was taking on. I learned how to do it. I would go, Jim Eldridge, if you remember him.
Oh,
he was
yeah.
building houses in my neighborhood out in Hopewell.
Yep.
And so I'd go over there and watch them build. And it always fascinated me how they could cut it and nail it all together. And so just hanging out there, watching them do that, it got me interested. And so I would take on handyman jobs. I would work in pest control and do a handyman job. So I wasn't making enough money from pest control, because Dad just wanted to keep it just us. He didn't want to deal with employees. He had already had employees. They were a hassle, didn't want to deal with them. So it was just the two of us from probably 1986, 87 until he died in 2003. So it's a two-man operation. Mom answered the phone, did the books. Dad did the managing and helped me with jobs, the bigger jobs, and I did the
You think
day-to-day
it's
work.
easier to work late and on Saturdays than to have help?
Sometimes. I mean, I've got 32 employees now, so obviously I
Golly.
changed my mind somewhere along the way. But,
He'd roll over in his grave.
no, he wouldn't want to do it. He couldn't keep employees because they would do something wrong, and he'd fly off the handle, and, they would leave, and then he was looking for an employee. I've learned I got to take a deep breath. Okay, calm down. Before I talk to this guy, let's figure out why this happened, and then try to, again, more like my mom, she's more of a peacemaker, and so try to figure it out before I fly off the handle. I have flown off the handle a few times.
And we're usually wrong.
Yeah, usually there's more to the story.
Always.
You hear something and think, how could he do that? And then get to digging in a little deeper. Well, it's not quite the way that I was told, and there's more to it than that, and
And you've always got those guys that are working with you that kind of want to be the hall monitor, and they'll dramatize it a little bit. That's not exactly what. And if we knew everything they said behind our backs, we wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning.
That's
so
the
I
way it
understand
is.
that too.
Yeah.
But they'd be the first ones there to help me, and the last ones to leave if I needed it.
Yeah. I've got several guys like that are good at let me know what's going on. Sometimes they might over dramatize it a little bit, and I have to dig in a little deeper. But I've learned, don't make any quick decisions on things. Get all the information from the customer, from the technician, from anyone in between, and then try to bring both parties together and say, okay, how can we fix this?
I've learned not to make big decisions before lunch. Because it always, after you go eat somewhere, After you get through eating, you say, "Oh, I'll just do this." It's not a big deal. But before lunch, you're
Yeah, you got to calm down, I found, because usually when whatever it is, the adrenaline is
Yeah.
flowing and you're still, frustrated over it, you're going to make a bad decision 9 times out of 10.
and you can have some guys come in and they're just in a bad mood.
Yeah.
And you pick up on it and you just kind of let them have their space that
Yeah.
day.
Now, I've learned to do that. There's a lot of these younger guys that we are working now, they're having a bad day, and I just have to realize that early on and just, okay, let's talk about this at the end of the day, or let's talk about this tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you got a lot better result.
Are all 32 people in Cleveland or where?
I've got some in Chattanooga. We've got an office down there, but the majority of them report to the Cleveland office.
Well, what's it like having another office in Chattanooga? Does that make it complicated?
Well, my son Paul kind of oversees that one, so it's not quite he still runs most things by me, but it does complicate things.
I'd say it would. Maybe just economies of scale or something.
We've learned that we just have to have systems for everything. So you
Boy,
get a
that's the
system that
truth.
works in Cleveland, the system will work in Chattanooga. You just have to have people that remember to work the system. This is how procedures for everything. And that's been, 25 years in the making, coming up with all these, this is the way to do everything.
I found that out too. Systems over goals.
Yeah.
You want to get something done, have a system, not a goal, because
Well, you'll have a lot of freelancers.
McDonald's had a system.
You'll have a lot of freelancers if you just have the goal and they're going to do
Yeah.
it their way. And it
Right.
may not work as well as what you've already proven will work, or it may cause a lot of unforeseen problems that a lot of fires you have to put out before you can get back on track. So we have the goal is here, and these are the systems to reach the goal. Just focus on this.
We
and
may
then
change the
focus on that.
system later, but
Yeah.
right now that's the
Yeah,
system.
if you can come up with a better system, okay, but let's run it by me before you start deviating. If you think you have an idea of some way to do it better, I'm all about that. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I think that's very
And
important
times
to know.
change the systems.
Oh, they do. They do.
They change it a
But
lot.
I figured out early on, there's a lot of things I don't know. And the old saying, you don't know what you don't know. Well, you got to be willing to admit that you don't know everything. And I always was able to find somebody a little further down the road than me. Once my dad passed away, it was all on me. And so I'm thinking, okay, what should I do here? Well, I found a guy in Atlanta that had a much bigger business than I had. And I just asked him, I said, would you mind, if I, call you up from time to time, ask you a few questions? I said, I'm willing to pay you. He said, man, you don't have to pay me. Yeah, give me a call anytime you have a question. I met him at one of the training seminars. And so I wore him out for a better part of 5 years until my business was as big as his. And then I knew everything he
Yeah.
knew. So then I found another guy in Augusta, and he had a $10 million business. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do the same deal. He was willing to help me. And so I could call him up. His name was Jeff Annis. And call him up and say, hey, I've got this issue. I'm trying to open this office in Chattanooga. I'm running all kinds of issues. What do I do? And he talked me through it and helped me out. So it's always good to find somebody that knows something you don't know.
And they will tell you. A lot of people will be glad to help you.
It's funny how that works. Like Jim Sharp, he gave me a lot of encouragement early on. He knew my dad, and when he passed away, he said, what are you going to do with the business, son? And I said, well, going to try to run. He said, what do you mean try? And I said, well, he said, you've been doing this a long time, haven't you? I said, yeah. He said, you know probably as much as your dad did, don't you? I said, well, yeah, probably. He said, then you're not going to try, you're going to do it, aren't you? And he put it that way, yeah, I'm going to do it. And so he was willing. He even gave me a testimonial I could put in the phone book, and just super nice guy.
Jim was
very
good at
helpful.
that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Jim would help you when you didn't even want the help.
Yeah, you didn't even ask for it.
Didn't even ask for it.
Because I guess he could just knew that me losing my dad and taking this all on, probably need a little encouragement. And he gave it.
Jim wanted to be helpful. He truly wanted to be helpful.
And he was.
He was to me too. We'd go to lunch every January, 1st of January, every year for 10 years. He'd always say, Dee, I want to know what you're going to be doing 5 years from now. He always said 5 years. That was
Yeah.
some magical thing about it.
Yeah, that's what he asked me too. You know,
He
where
was
you want to
five-
see, where you want to see your business 5 years from now?
Why do they always
And
say
how
five?
how do you measure things? I said, well, I guess sales and maybe how many employees I have. And he said, well, where do you want to be in 5 years? I said, I hadn't really thought about it. He said, well, I recommend you think about it.
You know, I asked him one time, I said, Jim, I said, what about these banks about, you know, if the banks stop loaning money to me? He said, Dee, you need to go to a bank and ask them how they want your books to look and then make your books look like that. I thought, well, that's too simple.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what they wanted, and he told me to ask them what they wanted.
Yeah, he had a way of cutting through all the bull and just, you know, this is
You ever
what you
wonder
need to
if
do.
people like him or your dad or even Jim Eldridge? I remember Jim Eldridge, he used to drive in that truck all the time. You know, he'd smoke them cigarettes.
Yeah.
He built Farmland Corners.
Yeah.
West Eldridge Acres, East Eldridge
He
Acres.
just built all of Alvin Court back in there and
Sure,
Hopewell.
yeah. I mean, he'd build 20 a year back when most people built 2.
Oh, he'd have 10 going at a time.
Yeah.
Side by side by side.
He was all in, wasn't he? Then he died, then his son died. But could those people make it today? Has things changed that much? Or would they figure out a way?
I think guys like that would adapt pretty quickly. You know, they have their way of doing it. Now, their old way of doing it wouldn't work today, probably.
But you think they would
I
adapt?
think Jim Sharp could do it anytime. He's just one of those guys, he figured things out.
He would have got a selfie. Jim Eldridge would have got a smartphone and a computer and email and he'd have worked that out too.
If he didn't do it, he'd have hired somebody that would do it. He had figured
I
it out.
believe you're right. That's what answer I was going to say is those people would have found a system that worked with it.
Yeah.
You know, back to systems, they say that kids that grow up in a routine, even if it's not as good of a routine, they're still better off than kids that grow up in a better home that aren't on a routine because you have to have routine. You have to have a routine.
I think you got to have some discipline in your life. You got to have certain things where you do these things every day because you know they're the right thing to do, and you just more regimented in the way you're brought up. I was very regimented. I don't know. I guess it was the military and my dad, but he didn't allow us to sleep in. Get up, get up, get up. But Dad don't have anything to do. I don't care. Get up. You get up, and so every morning we had to get up. And fortunately, I got into that habit. For 30 years, I've gotten up 5 o'clock, even though I don't have to now. I still wake up 5 o'clock every morning.
5 o'clock, God,
When
that's
I'm on
early.
vacation, I wake up 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't always get up, but I wake up, and it's just you know the routine, and
Routine is so important.
it's just one of those things that I forget the exact saying, but it's saying that you know. I am every great man I've made great. Every failure I've made a failure. I'd like to find that thing, but anyway, it's habit. You know, if a man gets a lot of bad habits, it's going to destroy him. A man gets a lot of good habits, it's going to take him wherever he wants to go. It's just building those habits. And if you build good habits, good things are going to happen.
I remember a Gene officer told me one time, he said, nobody hates routine worse than me, but I got to have it.
And that's it. If you're going to get things done, I mean, for years, I don't do it as much now that I've turned a lot of the day-to-day stuff over to the other guy, I call it the management team. There's 3 guys that just kind of run things day to day. But I just have a notepad every day. These are the things I'm going to get done tomorrow. Priority, number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way down. And then I try to knock off number 1, number 2, try to get as many as I can before lunch because I know other stuff's going to pop up.
It never fails.
And some things take priority over what's on my list. Some things I say, nah, that's going to wait. It's going to go at the bottom. And I try to get everything done as much as I could. Anything I don't get done rolls over to the next day.
I do that every night about 10:30.
And I think most people that have success do that because if you just take it as it comes.
You know, remember Austin Stevenson?
Yeah.
I was sitting next to him at Cleveland Plywood. I used to go there every morning from the time I was started driving. I thought I was a big builder. I'd go in there and drink coffee and didn't have anywhere to go, but I was a big shot. And he didn't talk much, but he was very successful. I mean, he built.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people that don't know don't have a clue how successful he was. But I was sitting there one morning, and he had a piece of paper, and he went like this. And I looked at it, and he divided it up into 4, and it said before lunch, after lunch. He had the day divided up. I thought that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah,
because
it
you
is.
could fold it, and then you.
Yeah, that's right.
So all of those people, like you say, somewhere there's a notepad.
Now it could be a smartphone.
Could be.
Could be an organizer, you know. But
I
yeah,
found out that writing it, though, gives me a different sense.
Yeah, for me it does. I still have a notepad I keep in my truck because I'm bad again, not doing this as much anymore, but I used to be under a house and somebody called me. And I'd, hang on. And then once I got back to my truck, I'd write it down, anything I needed to do before the end of the day.
Yeah.
Then when I pulled in the driveway, it might be 7 o'clock at night in the busy season, but before I went in the house, I would return those calls because if I didn't, I'd forget about it.
Right.
And then I've left a customer hanging, and what are they going to do? They're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, or you just feel like you're not completing something. I have a little OCD, too. So I have to complete certain things or my mind gets all messed up.
Yeah, well, the way my mind works, I have to do it if I have to go from point A to point B, because if I'm halfway through something and get off on something else, I may never find my way back, and it just doesn't get done, or I get off, so I have to just hold it, have to finish what I'm doing, and then I can move on.
Mine's worse. I have to do it in clockwise order, geographically.
Yeah.
And I start at the most important place.
Yeah.
And then I go clockwise. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's just the way your brain works.
But it's
and you can't change it.
I can't change it. I can't change it.
Because my wife gets pretty frustrated with me sometimes because I'm doing something. She wants to tell me something. I have to hold on. And because I know if I get off talking about that, it'll take me 30 minutes to get going again.
And that's wasting time.
To me, it is. Because I want to get done. I'm very task driven. And my wife tells me, she said, sometimes you're rude when you're working, and you are rude to our employees sometimes, because I do. Hold on, I'll be right with you, or no, I can't talk now, because I've got to do it that way, or I won't get it done. And it's just, it's sort of a burn in me. I got to get these things done, and back in the old days, I didn't go home until I got it all done.
No,
and
that's the way I was.
Some days it's 5 o'clock. Some days it's 8 o'clock.
But you're done.
I got to get done. Yeah, and that way I can rest that night. If I don't have it done, I can't rest that night.
It's almost a guilt feeling, isn't it? Like I've committed a sin.
It is.
It's a weird feeling.
Like I let my customer down because I didn't get that done that I promised them I'd get done. And it served me well. My customers, I think all of them are happy. But that's just the way I've always done it.
And that'll drive us crazy if somebody's not happy with something. If they knew how bad it bothered me, they'd bankrupt me.
I feel that way. I want them to be happy, and
You're not born in November, are you?
No, I'm born in January. But I try my best to make them happy. Sometimes lose money trying to make people happy, but I figure I'd rather do that than have them unhappy.
I can handle any criticism you can throw at me, unless it's about my job. Then it doesn't go over well.
Yeah.
That's the only area that seems to bother me like that.
I don't like any criticisms. You got
I
me
can
on that.
I can handle other criticism, but just
Well, I don't like it. It kind of bugs me if it's something I could have done better, like whether it's job performance or something personally that I promised to do something, I didn't get it done the way they wanted.
well, that's job related.
That just, it bothers me that I want to do everything as best I can. I don't want anybody to be disappointed.
Would your dad be more able to let that go, or did he?
Maybe, he was really funny on some things. He was just really adamant it had to be done this certain way. And so he might be able to a little more than I can, but then again, I may have gotten that from him. The peacemaker part I got from my mom, and then that driven, task driven. Because I've done some research on that. They call it task driven. You know, some people are more sociable and things like that. I'm not that much. I'm more get the job done, I'll talk later. And some people got to stop and talk, and then they'll get the job done.
If you want me to talk, I'll have to schedule it, and then I'll talk. You ever heard that same thing where if you do something 10,000 times, you become an expert?
I have.
I always think about that. If you did something every day, what would you, what could you accomplish if you just did something simple? Would you be an expert at it? I guess you would, because 10,000 times is a lot of time.
I think so. They
How
say
many
that.
years would 10,000 times be? If you did something every day, 10,000, that'd be 10,000 days. And there's 365 days in a year, say 400. How many?
I'm not that good at math in my head.
What would that be, Glenn? It'd be a lot, wouldn't it? Would be 1,000 would be 3 years, basically.
Yeah, it'd be years and years. I mean, I heard
3
somebody
times
talk
10.
about
3 times 10.
learning to play a guitar. If it took 10,000 hours, it would be up to you how many hours a day you put toward
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's right. Oh, that's
And-
what it
and so,
was.
yeah,
Hours,
yeah.
not times.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could spend 8 hours a day and cut that down.
Yeah, yeah.
Throwing a basketball into the hoop this
Yeah,
one
just
spot.
practice over and over and over, and then you could get there. But that's how long it would take. I had a friend lived across the street from me growing up, and he was one of those guys. He decided he was going to be a skateboarder, and he fell and he fell and he fell, and after a while, he was pretty good on that thing. You know, he had a ramp in his driveway and all that. Then a couple years later, decided he's going to learn how to play guitar. We're like, oh yeah, right. Within a year and a half, he's playing the guitar really well.
Did y'all grow up on Hope Acres
Yeah.
the whole time?
Yeah.
So that's where Brad was going when he
Yeah.
went to. Was that zone for El
No,
Ross?
no, they were unhappy with what was going on at Hopewell at the time. That's where I had gone. I went all the way through at Hopewell. They had what they called the PAC system. I don't know if you remember that, but they'd basically give you a bunch of work, big packs at the first of the year, and it's up to you to work at your own pace to get them
Lord.
done.
But they'd never get
Well,
work.
that didn't work so well with some kids
Yeah.
because their pace was like, I'll do that, and
I don't remember Brad being a big book guy.
No, he wasn't. He was no scholar. Now he did go back to college. He's got a college degree, but at that time in his life, no, he wasn't.
I bet I wouldn't know him if I saw him now.
Well, he has changed a little bit and through the years, but
Who's building that house on Mouse Creek Road or Frontage Road? Is that yours or whose is that?
no,
I thought a Gardner bought that lot, and the basement's been sitting there for 2 years.
No, it must be someone not related to me.
Oh, I'd be another
It
Gardner.
could be.
I was thinking maybe it was one of y'all.
No, like I say, Brad, my brother Kirk lives out on Eureka Road, and Brad's up in Loudon.
I built a pharmacy in Loudon.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, back during '09 when the economy went to pieces.
Yeah.
How'd that go with you?
You know, actually, we did pretty good through it. We didn't do a whole lot of real estate stuff, and I had a few builders to work with. Of course, they were pretty flat during that time. But business actually, I think, increased slightly. Not like we were used to, but we did okay.
So you do pre-treats of houses too?
Yeah, we do.
See, we don't use you. I need to change that, don't I? I don't even know who we use.
I think we did something for you down in Georgia, down in Fort O, that Fort Wood.
Oh, Fort O, yeah, Fort, yeah.
We're licensed in Georgia too,
Yeah.
so we did some stuff down there.
Yeah, I did like a $2.5 million project.
Yeah, yeah,
Three
it's a big
through
one.
me.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we do termite pre-treats. There's several builders that use this, some that don't. You know, it just.
And then bugs all the time. Bugs. We get a lot of black ants come out at a certain time, and
Yeah.
they die off in about, what, 2 weeks or 3
Yeah, it
weeks?
depends on the type, but yeah, some of it's a few weeks to a few months, just depending on.
But they just come in. There ain't much you can do about it if they decide to
Well, we can stop. We usually try to get out there and kind of forage around, find the source,
Uh-huh.
and that way we can end them permanently. But
But do they
takes a
die
while.
off in about 2 weeks?
It just depends on what kind they are. The carpenter ants, they go all season, you know. It just depends on what it is. I'd have to see it and identify it. But some of them do. They have a pretty short life.
Well, that termite stuff is. I remember I bought a house one time and I was going to fix it up and resell it, and the whole side of the house was completely eat up with termites. You could push the wall in.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you can't look at it and tell.
You could not tell it. There's no way, but there was just nothing in the wall.
Yeah.
It was held up by just imagination.
Yeah.
It's a.
That's
It
what
was.
they say,
It was.
termites holding hands is the only thing holding it together.
Yeah, it was. It had to be it because you could push your finger in it.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen a bunch like that. There was one house up in McMinn County. The guy called us, and he hadn't been a customer. He said, "Hey, I need you guys to come up here quick." I said, "Okay, what's going on?" He said, "Well, my bedroom is in the crawl space." I said, "Your bedroom's in the crawl space? What do you mean?" He said, "I came home from work, I went down the hall, opened the door to my bedroom, and it's in the crawl space." And sure enough, the whole thing had just dropped 4 feet into the crawl space. Bed, dresser, everything. Got to looking, it was just completely decimated with termites.
Just the box band had gone and
so
everything.
it had just dropped. You know, I guess it just one joist had popped, and then it was a chain reaction. So I was under there looking, and I noticed somebody was walking down the hall, and I could see every floor joist flex. And as it got closer, I thought, I'm getting out of here. I didn't want it to collapse.
You know, that
on me.
vapor barrier under the house is more important than about anything.
It is, and a lot of people don't understand that.
See, Joe made me do that on Everett. Push the 6 mil plastic all the way against the wall, cut the razor cut around the piers. You know, I was real good at the cut. I could lay on I could cut it like that, cut it diagonal and lay it. He was big on that.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference because that moisture just comes up out of the ground. It condenses on the wood, keeps the wood moisture content up. Fungus can grow.
To this
mold
day,
can
I
grow.
can stick my head in a crawl space and I can smell, and just about smell what it's got, if anything.
Yeah. Well, our guys can. When we're at houses doing the pest control treatment, I tell them, open up the crawl space door and look under it, preferably, but at least smell.
Yeah.
If it smells musty, they got moisture issues, and they need to know about it.
And I always push on the rafters that I can reach with my fingernail to see if it's.
Yeah, I mean, we take a big screwdriver and we bang on them and just see, and there's been a few you could poke it through.
Oh, yeah.
And we had one out on Dalton Pike where the lady was talking on her phone, pacing back and forth in the living room, and she felt it drop and heard something pop. Well, she called us. We went out. Sure enough, one of her floor joists had broken, and the other 3 or 4 were, on the verge, had wood decay fungus. So we had to cut up her floor, take the plywood out, put new floor joists in because it was too low to get under, and then just put the floor back down, put the carpet back down. It took about a day and a half. If you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can
So
move
y'all
on pretty
did that
quick.
for her?
Yeah. We do some floor repairs.
Because who else you gonna call?
That's the thing.
You're
There's
gonna
very few
leave
people.
it because you could, if you recommended a guy, they'll botch it up.
Well, very few carpenters want to work under crawl spaces.
Yeah, like those, you have to go through the top.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't want to fool with that because it's a day and a half job. They want bigger jobs,
Yeah.
and I get it. And so we started doing that probably 10, 12 years ago. So if we find one that has termite damage or fungus damage, we can repair it for them and save them some money because, I'm not trying, I think that job took us a day and a half. It was like $3,800. So she had another carpenter. She wanted to get a second bid. He wanted $12,000. That's just the difference.
Well, y'all knew what was bad.
We knew what was bad, and we have other sources of income. That's not the only thing we do, so we don't have to knock a home run.
How much does a pre-treat cost per foot? How do you figure?
the
See, I
way-
always used to figure about 15 cents a square foot,
Well, the
just
way-
as a rough number.
The way we do it now, we use a product called borate, and it's a wood treatment because that's what we're trying to protect is the wood. The old soil treatments, this is the dirty little secret of termite control. There's like 175 different termiticides that can be used. It has termites on the label in the state of Tennessee. A lot of them will last anywhere from 6 months to a year. There's one that is used widely called Cyper TC. If you spray it on the ground around the house in exposed sunlight, it'll last for 90 days. And so it's just not really giving any protection.
No.
It's just, making people feel good
Yeah.
thinking it's been treated. Borate, you spray it on the wood up 24 inches from the sill, out, like if it's a floor joist, out 24 inches from the foundation wall. So you're out and up 24 inches. That will last for 50 years.
50 years. That stopped those black ants
So
too, probably.
it'll
wouldn't
stop
it?
black ants. Fungus can't grow on it. No kind of wood destroying organism.
Now you're pre-treating after the floor system's in.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of aggravation,
so
right?
we're doing it at the dried-in stage. So we just go in there and spray everything down. We
And
use a
still
marker
get
dye.
under the floor?
Yeah, we go under the floor, use a marker dye. So we're not treating the soil at all now. we're treating the wood because if
I see.
yeah, so if a termite builds a tube up, he's going to hit that borate and he can't go any further.
Do they spray up from under the crawl space?
Yeah, we go up and spray the
Well, and on a
band
new
joist
house, you got 3.5, 4 feet anyway.
Yeah, most of them, and some of them are lower, but we can work with that. But yeah, and it varies on cost, depending on how the house is built.
Let me tell you, let's see, I was probably 23 or something, and that was back in the time when the concrete guys all stayed at Hardee's every morning.
Yeah. They meet over there.
And so I went by there one day, and I called it, and I said, can y'all pour this? Nope, Dee, we can't get there till next Wednesday. There's no way. I went by the next morning. We can't get it. We're pouring for Jim Williams at the time, or Cherokee Construction.
Yeah.
And he was a lot bigger than I was. So I just forgot about it. I didn't. So I called Fred to treat it, and he said, I can't get there till Wednesday. I said, well, it's no problem. They're not going to be there anyway. And so I'm driving by there, and there they are pouring that slab. And I said, hold it. I said, y'all can't pour this now. I hadn't called Fred. And they said, oh, we saw him at Hardee's and got him up here and he sprayed it. Now, that's part of being in a small town, isn't it?
Yeah, they all kind of work together and know, hey, we're heading up there. We've got a cancellation.
But termites are such a big thing. They'll eat a house up in no time, won't they? It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, the size of the colony will dictate kind of how fast they can work. But you get a large colony, once it finds the house, they're constantly out foraging for food. So once one termite finds a food source, they release pheromones and attract more termites. So you just have one happen to build a tube up, boom, find wood, then more come. Well, if you get a large colony, it's got millions of termites in it, yeah, they can do significant damage in a month to 6 weeks.
When they eat that wood, where does it go? How do they digest it?
Well, they've got a microbe in their gut that helps them digest it. And if they didn't have that microbe, they couldn't.
Where's it go then?
Well, they just consume it and they take it back. This is kind of gross, but they will defecate and feed one another. Oh, yeah. And so they will,
mulch at that point.
Basically. So they'll go up and get it and they bring it back to the colony. They don't eat it and just keep it. They bring it back to the colony. So they go up, get a bite, come down. And they're very organized. They'll build tubes up the foundation wall, and then they'll go over and they'll build what we call stalactite tubes coming down to the ground. And it's like a highway. They're going up here, eating, coming down. So they're not,
passing each other.
Yeah, it's not doing, they're all going one way.
So they're like an ant with a mission.
Yeah, and they actually are cousins to ants, but they can digest wood. So that's where they get their nutrients, and every year they swarm. And when they swarm, those are the reproductives, they enlarge the colony. So they either make that colony bigger or they start a next colony. And so if you don't do something about termites, they just progressively get worse and worse and worse and worse over time. So you might start out with one small colony feeding on your house. In 10 years, you might have 3 or 4 really large colonies feeding on your house. So that's when the damage gets there.
So, some people that own a lot of apartments, they probably think, man, they could be eating up all my equity here.
It's possible. I tell people all the time, we do free inspections. We'll go out, we'll see what's going on, we'll take photos, give you a free report, and if we find something, quote what we need to do to take care of them for them. But,
But then you'd have it on the record that's got termites.
Yeah. It'd be on your record.
Yeah.
Well, that way, the landlord would know kind of what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
They can get on a schedule and say, okay, I'm going to treat these 3 this year and these 3 the next year. Because, when people that have a lot of these apartments, that's millions and millions of dollars of real estate. Well, what's it worth if you got half the house caves in and you have to rebuild it? Or worse yet, somebody falls through the floor and is injured. Then you got a major problem.
Now, what does it cost just to treat a house?
It just depends on the house.
Roughly.
Again, around $1,000, $1,500, could be less if it's a smaller house. The more concrete we have to drill, that raises the price. So it just depends. We just want to get that, what we usually call Termador HP2 for an existing house, and it injects it in the ground, and we have to, if there's like a driveway, sidewalk, porch, we have to drill through it to get it into the soil beneath it, because we want to just get that protective barrier all the way around the foundation.
You think anybody ever come up with something you stick in your yard that has a vibration that vibrates them away or something?
They haven't come up with
Or
that yet.
like a sonar sound or something?
I've seen a lot of houses we do on pest control, they'll have those little sonar things supposed to scare the roaches away and all that, and they call me, so I'm assuming it didn't work, or else I wouldn't be there. But, you know, I've heard those things really work great, but there was one house I went and did a roach job on, this 20 years ago, and in the little sonar thing, there were roaches living. So I'm like...
Maybe they like the sound.
Apparently it attracted them.
You know, it's tough being in business, isn't it? 32 employees, man, that would run me crazy. That's 32 checks a week.
Yeah, well, we pay every 2 weeks, so it makes it a little better. But yeah, we got to make payroll. Just when we get through making one payroll, we got to start building for the next payroll.
Well, that's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that. They think when you're in business, it's just, you know, laughing all the way to the bank, and it's just like, no, I got to make sure I got enough money in there to cover the next payroll.
And really, two, maybe. And plus, insurance comes to you every so often. And workman's comp.
Sometimes at the same time, you know.
Yeah, my workman's comp and general and insurance all come in January and February, and that's when I've just paid property taxes.
Yeah.
So I'm broke as you can be by, well, actually right now.
That's the way mine works, and I didn't plan it this way, but my workers' comp is due at the end of the year. They do, it ends and they do the audit, so usually I get that in January, February.
Yeah.
I got to pay out the quarterly estimated tax January 15th.
I did that.
And
then property taxes, because you want to pay them last year, at least right up to the 31st.
And so all of that in my slow season. I mean, this would be way easier in July, but no, I got to do it when things are at the slowest. So
see, I have and then you got income tax, April 15th. You got to get all the books ready, and you got 1099s. Then you're receiving 1099s, and but then usually from April the 17th, I've got till about November. I can just, there's nothing in my way. So that feels pretty good.
Yeah, that helps. We've got good office staff, so they keep most of that stuff done for me. I don't have to worry with it too much. Just have to oversee it and make sure it gets done. I don't want to get any calls from the state of Tennessee or the IRS that I didn't do something I was supposed to do. And that's, I haven't spoken to that many business owners about it, but that's one of my biggest headaches is all of the government compliance that I have to do. That's my life would be so much easier with OSHA. I got to fill out the OSHA report, and I'm sure you had to do that too. And just all these other things. I got EPA and the Tennessee Department of Agriculture that I report to.
Right, see, I don't have to deal with those.
Yeah, and so we've got inspectors that come. I got to meet with the Georgia inspector in a couple of weeks, take him reports of all the stuff we've done. So, and I understand it, but it's just something else that takes my time that I don't get any money for. And it just
that's what you have to figure in those pre-treats.
Yeah.
You have to figure everything has to pay for a little bit of it.
And that's the thing, a lot of people don't want to pay much, so you got to, there's always in business, and you run into this too, that fine line, you got to charge enough to cover expenses and make some money. Well, then they don't want you to make that much, and you're always battling that every time you bid something.
I bid on them before jobs. I bid on them and lost money.
Yeah.
I mean, real money, lots of money. Well, that's bad.
Yeah, I've bid on a few that I thought, it'll be close, but I think I'll be all right on it. And then something happens, and I'm not all right on it, upside down, and just think, let's just get done.
I built a restaurant in 90 days and lost $13,000.
Oh, really?
I mean, and I didn't sleep for 90 days because I was in such a hurry.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine
Try
that?
to get it done, yeah.
Work your butt off for 90 days, don't sleep, and lost 13,000.
And when you tell the people,
they probably thought I made 50,000.
Well, see, and I've told a few people, I say, I miscalculated on this a little bit, the time and material it would take, and I'm actually going to wind up losing money on it. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
That's the way they look at it.
I found out best thing not tell them, just act like it's all good, and when they call you again,
Yeah.
you get another. You get up to bat again.
You get another
all
bite
I want
at
is
the apple.
I want a chance to get up to bat again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it because it's not going to work the other way.
I make a real good customer though, don't you? Now that I own my own business.
Oh yeah, I try to make it easy.
I'm a good customer. I'm easy.
I'm easy to schedule. If somebody needs to come out, I make it easy for them, and meet them. I make sure they don't wait. 'Cause I know what that's like. I've got a tight schedule, and I'm sitting there for 30 minutes waiting on somebody to show up.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm late the rest of the day. So yeah, I try to make
You
it as
miss
easy
the
as I
days
can.
when you were just out pre-treating and drinking coffee and eating at Hardee's and.
There are a lot of days I do miss it. It was definitely easier in some ways when it was just me. I can count on me. I'll be where I'm supposed to be. I don't have to worry about anybody else. I've got a good group of employees now, so I'm going to say that everybody is where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. I haven't had to yell at anybody in quite a while, and they've done what they're supposed to do. But it's frustrating when you're trying to build a solid reputation. And I think I had a pretty good one when it's just me doing the work.
Yeah.
And so you got to be really careful who you hire because one bad apple can ruin your company reputation real quick. And I try to make them understand that. I've got a very short leash on people that make me look bad. They'll do it one time, and we better be able to fix it quick because I don't want a bad reputation.
We can't take it mentally, can we?
No, I can't. I've worked too hard to try to build a solid reputation where people can trust me and know they can trust me. And that's just one thing about my dad. He said, hey, look, you've got one shot at doing it right. He said, if you lie one time from that day forward, you're a liar.
Yeah.
He said, if you want to be an honest person, you got to be an honest person 100% of the time. You got to be a man of your word. And I'll tell you this quick story. When I was 16 years old, I wanted to buy a car. And so I had most of the money, but not all the money. And so he went to the bank. I don't know if you remember Bob Hamilton. He was up at First American Bank.
Yeah.
Big, tall guy.
Yeah.
Well, we went in there to see him, and I think I had to borrow like $1,200. It wasn't much. Back then it was, but now, And so borrowed $1,200, and they brought out this big stack of papers, and I had to sign my dad. Actually, I couldn't sign. My dad was signing because I was underage. And so he was signing, and I said, man, that's a lot of papers to sign. And he said, yeah. He said, a lot of people, they won't pay it back, so they got to make you sign all this. And he said, but what he doesn't know, he said, even if he didn't have me sign a single paper, I'd pay it back. And that's just the way he was, You didn't have to. And good people, you don't have to get to sign all those papers. Shake a hand, look in the eye, and it's done.
I even have to live up to what they think I said.
Yeah.
That drives me nuts too.
Well, I've learned to get it in writing because I've had a lot of people tell me, say, wait a minute, I thought you were going to do this and that. And I said, no, right here. Because
that's
thing.
real. You can't spend enough time on that, can you?
We discussed it, but we didn't agree on it.
Right.
And I'm sure you get a lot of that.
Oh, I get a lot of, weren't you going to put a shower door in here? No, we said you didn't want a shower door.
Yeah, when I told you the price, you decided you didn't want it. But
well, can you imagine shower doors now? Do you know they're like $1,800?
Yeah. They're really nice.
Oh, they were $200 back in the day.
Yeah. Well, things have changed for sure.
It's unbelievable that just renovating a bathroom will cost $35,000.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. That's what I bet. I wonder what that house was that Joe built for you. I bet that was in the
I can remember
mid-40s.
55.8.
55.8.
And I got it at 9.9% financing with a THDA loan, and that was a steal because interest rates were 13-14%. And so when people talking now about them 7-8%, I'm like, that's nothing.
Oh yeah, that's cheap.
I got a good deal at 9.9, so that's no big deal.
And we were still getting it at 10.5.
Yeah. Yep.
I found out over 10.5, you better get rid of it.
Yeah.
But below that, you can make it.
Yeah.
But 55.8, that's what it would cost you to renovate the bathroom and put in a new driveway.
Yeah. Yep, I guarantee
Isn't that
it would.
something?
Yeah, and that was a pretty nice house. It's like 1,500 square feet. And, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, I think the minimum over there is 1,500.
yeah.
Did Roger Goins live across the street?
Actually,
His mother?
I think that was the house that I was looking at, and he said it was already sold.
He
And
was
so-
building that for Roger's
and,
mother.
And so I said, oh, dang it, I really like that one. He said, well, I can build another one. He said, I got some lots over there, and so I picked out the one I wanted, and the rest is
That was a
history.
good location, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, back in those days, though, that's before Paul Huff was there.
Oh, yeah, you had to go
And-
down.
You had to go all the way by Cleveland State.
Yeah, or you could turn left on Walker Valley. Remember that?
Yeah, Valley Head.
Valley Head. Yeah, Valley Head.
Valley Head came there from Peerless. Peerless dead ended into Valley Head, and then came down. I mean, it was narrow.
It
if
was
you remember.
narrow.
And it came down through there and ran into frontage.
Not even many people used it.
No, it was all grown up on both sides. Yeah, it was real narrow. But when my parents, of course, living over in Hopewell, to go to their house, I'd have to go all the way up by Cleveland State, come across by the Holiday Inn North, and then down Georgetown Road. And then when they cut Paul Huff, oh yeah, it just opened everything up.
Boy, they took them a while to build that. Remember when they were going to build E.O. Ross, they said they didn't want any businesses on Paul Huff.
Yeah.
And they agreed to let them bring the road through if there weren't any businesses.
Yep, I remember that.
And boy,
I remember there's some people sold land pretty cheap because it's residential, and then
Yeah.
it got changed to commercial, and the people that had it then, yeah, it just,
yeah, I think that's where Publix is probably.
yeah.
But you can't hardly get through there now.
No, I know.
I mean, I remember when I could do the village and be at the farmland corners, and I could time it where I didn't even have to stop because I could hit every green
Yeah.
light. And now, on Friday afternoons, I bet it'd take you 30 minutes to drive that.
Oh, it would. Back in the old days, I could be working on the north end up North Lee Highway, Mouse Creek Road, and have to run down to McDonald. And I could be there in 15, 17
Yeah.
minutes because I did it all day
Yeah.
long. I know.
Yeah.
You know, I can land.
Straight shot.
I can stick the landing on just about
Yeah.
anything. I know how long it takes. Now, you're looking at 35 minutes to do the same journey just because of
If
traffic.
there's no incidents.
Yeah,
You almost
yeah.
have to leave early because there might be an
If
incident.
there's stalled traffic, yeah, you're not gonna make it.
Cleveland's sort of getting divided between Paul Huff now.
Yeah.
It's sort of the new Inman.
Yeah, it is.
I don't really like it, but there's nothing we can do about it.
No, it's Cleveland's a different town. I think my dad, if he were to come back now, he's been gone over 20 years. He'd be like, yeah.
He'd moved
What
to
happened?
Etowah.
Yeah,
wouldn't
he
was
did.
he on the job when he died?
No, he was at home. We had worked all day together, and then that night he was not feeling good, so I went over to see what's going on. And when I got there, he was laid out on the floor. Mom said he just was not feeling right, dizzy, and by that time he had fallen out on the floor. And so I was there for the whole thing. The EMS came and
Did he
shocked
have any
him.
heart problems at all?
Well, he was on blood thinner because he had atrial fibrillation.
Yeah.
And so he didn't like to take the blood thinner because he liked to get out in his workshop and he'd cut himself and he'd
Yeah.
bleed. And so he did his own thing, you know. I think he'd quit taking it. We don't know for sure, but I think he had. And apparently had a, blood clot form and boom. But yeah, they hit him with the paddles, and I always thought on TV it works. You
Yeah.
know, they hit him, they were fine. It didn't. So I asked him afterwards, I said, I thought that was going to work. He said, nah. He said, man, it's like 10, 15, maybe 20% of the
Is
time.
that right? I thought it was every time.
Yeah,
at
well, I
least.
did too. And so they hit him several times with it, but didn't. So that's one of those images burned in my brain. I'd like to get out, but I can't.
Boy, yeah, I wouldn't want that in there. Your mother, she got that. Remember me? I guess she got a little Alzheimer's.
Yeah. She a couple of years ago, we noticed she was our bookkeeper for all these years, and
Yeah.
we noticed she's making some mistakes that were uncharacteristic for her, but she was in her 80s, So
And
that's
she
better
seemed
than-
fine otherwise.
Yeah, she was fine, good health. She got around good. She would drive, but she just making little mistakes. Probably about 5 years ago, so I got an accountant to sort of go in and look over her shoulder,
Yeah.
help with things, because it was just the point. Too many people depending on things being right.
Yeah.
When you got employees. So she started making a few more mistakes here and there, and just I could tell she just wasn't quite herself. Well, she had to have surgery for a hernia. I think it's almost 2 years ago, and she was still good, but she just made a few mistakes. When she had that surgery and the anesthesia, she came back home and couldn't even remember how to turn the computer on. Couldn't just
Sped
didn't
it
know
up.
password.
Sped it up, I
Yeah,
guess.
it just really took off. And so we just knew after a couple of months she had lost down to like 96 pounds, just wasn't eating, couldn't live alone anymore. So my brother and I were taking turns spending the night with her and trying to take care of her. And we thought, this isn't working. So then we started hiring people too, and it was costing a fortune. So then somebody told us about Remember Me. I thought, well, we'll check into it and see. And she's really done well. She's gained like 20 pounds since she's been there.
People like it over there, don't they?
Yeah, and she's got other ladies that she talks to, and whereas at home she was by herself most of the time. So she's really flourished and done well. And so she's 89 years old, but she's happy, and that's the main thing.
Was y'all's place over on Mimosa?
Yeah, it is.
Was that next to Marvin Hudson's? Remember Marvin?
I
CPA
remember
office?
the name. I think it is. He was in there somewhere.
Next to the
We're kind of next to the aquarium shop and
the trophy shop?
Yeah, the trophy shop's a little further down. We're right across from Duracell.
Yeah, well, that's where Marvin was.
He
Close-
might
he
have
was
been in that
they had
same-
the baseball cages there, batting cages there at
that's
one
probably
time.
in the same building.
Yeah,
There's
he
been a
was-
lot of stuff in that building.
Well, he was there when they built the thing, and he was there till 3 or 4 years ago. But that's a good location, isn't it?
Yeah, it is for us. It's central, and it just happened, kind of fell in our lap. Ron Moreland was the owner, and it had been empty for a while. He had rented it for years, and it had been empty for a while, and it got a leak in the roof and a few odds and ends, and it was kind of falling in disrepair. So we worked out a deal, and so we've just been gradually painting and fixing it up as we go. And so there's 8,000 square feet there. It was bigger than I thought. And so we've got it pretty well. There's still one section we need to work on, but we've got it pretty well all
Any homeless
built up.
people come in there from that Tinsley?
Well, there were some issues initially. Somebody cut catalytic converters off
I think
3 of our
Marvin had
trucks.
some of that.
And so we had it on camera. Then some guy comes up with a can of spray paint and sprays our camera. And but we saw him before he actually got it covered. So I put a fence in that's got barbed wire on top just to keep people out. And so since then we haven't had any more problems. But it's a shame to have to do that.
It's a shame in Cleveland, Tennessee.
Shame to do it, but the guy next door did it. So I thought, well, I got the same fence guys. I said,
Marvin
hey.
parked behind there. He always parked in the back in the gravel.
Well, we were having, once we put our cameras up, we would have 18-wheelers come in and pull around back and sit there. I don't know if they're spending the night or what. They probably been doing it for years when it was empty. And no big deal, but it was kind of tearing up my parking lot, that torquing of the tires. So I thought, I'm just going to put a gate around it, a fence around it with gates and end all that.
Boy, how'd you end up with 5 kids? Man, that's...
Well, my oldest is 36, and she's expecting her first baby. It's going to be here in August, little girl.
You'll be a grandfather.
Yeah, well, I already am. And my second daughter, she's 31. She had a little boy 2 years ago. And so both girls live in Knoxville. And so they're up there with their mom. And then my son Paul came back, and he works in the business. He's about to be 30. And so he's 6 feet 10 inches tall. So if you ever see anybody with the company shirt on,
6 foot 10 inches tall.
Don't know where that came from, but the height in our family all went to him. So
Well, you never know, do you?
You can't tell.
You got any that are short?
None, unusually short. Tyler, he's probably about 5'11"-ish. But he's 18.
That's taller than me.
He may still grow a little bit. I got a stepson, Derek, who is my wife's son, and he's 28. So the older kids, Tyler's 10 years younger than the youngest, and he's mine and Beth's. So he's the senior at Cleveland High School.
Boy, that's tough, isn't it, raising kids?
It is, and you think once they're grown, you won't worry about them anymore. They're out on their own, but you still do. hear they're going through this or that, they're not happy with their job
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever, and you're like, oh, and you don't want anybody mistreating your kid, even though they're a
No,
grown
you'd
adult.
kill 'em. You'll kill 'em.
You know, you're like, you know, there's not a lot I can do here, but you still hate to hear it.
But, you know, you get to ask a friend of mine, I said, when do you stop worrying about your kids? And he said, I think, I think it's your grandkids' kids. In other words, he wasn't even sure.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's
it
the
never
thing.
ends.
And that's the thing. You're going to worry about your grandkids. You're going to worry about your great-grandkids. Anytime.
Driving.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, when my phone rings, if it's my wife or kids, I just, my heart drops.
Yeah.
Because I just panic nearly. Isn't that something? You can be in a high-powered meeting and one of them shows up on your caller ID, you'll jump up and go to the other
Because
room.
my wife and kids kind of know during the day I'm busy, unless it's something pretty important, they don't call me. They might send me a text or something, but yeah, if I see that, I'm like, okay, what's up?
Oh, yeah. What in the world is going on? Because we've all got that call. Well, I've been in a wreck, you know, all that stuff.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, our 28-year-old was in an accident, and airbags deployed, wound up totaling his truck. Somebody ran him off the road. And then my daughter, she's a hospice nurse up in Knoxville, my second daughter. And she was out working on a Saturday night, coming back from somebody's house. She just goes, you know, on call. Anyway, somebody ran her off the road up in Knoxville and flipped it over.
Oh, Lord.
And totaled the thing, but all she got was a broken little pinky. And I'm like, hey, thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
So
They did break it for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty bad wreck.
Yeah, it
It
broke
takes
her.
a lot to break a.
Yeah, she somehow, I don't know if she banged it on something, but that was all that was hurt. But she had like 4 airbags deployed. So, but you know, it's just, I try not to worry. I've never been a worrier. You know, for a split second, I think, hey, if it's something I can control, I'll do it. If I can't, then leave it to the Lord and let Him handle it, and then I don't have to worry about it.
Where you get your inspirations from? As far as, I mean, like books or movies or TV?
Yeah, I read a lot of books. I don't read as many now as I used to. In the old days, you know, I would read stuff, just successful people.
Yeah.
You know, I always liked the quotes of successful people. You know, Teddy Roosevelt's one of my favorites because he is a guy who kind of reinvented himself. I don't know if you know his story, but
Is that the guy that was born rich?
yeah, born rich. His
Roosevelt, they
his
called it.
mother treated him sort of like a little fancy boy, wouldn't let him play with the other kids,
Right.
and just kept him really controlled. And he was just more of a librarian, you know, just that's how he was. Well, as he got older, he was tired of that. He was always sickly. She was always doting on him, and he wouldn't let him do anything. And so he decided he was going to go out west and just toughen up. And I think for a person to take that on themselves, I'm not happy with who I am, and I want to change that. And so he went out there, spent several years camping out under the stars, hunting buffalo, hunting elk, and doing all these things, and you know, basically becoming a cowboy. And when he came back, he was a different man, and then accomplished all the things he accomplished. And one thing he said, it's one of my favorite quotes. He said, failing is painful, or it's painful to fail, but it's far worse to live your life in a gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. And basically he's saying, if you don't ever try anything, you'll never fail, but you'll also never succeed.
Was that Roosevelt? Didn't he write The Arena, The Man in the Arena?
I think so.
Boy, that's powerful, isn't it?
But it's just, to me, it's like so many people do that. They live their life just afraid of failure, so they never try anything. They never venture out. They never take a risk. But you have to take risk if you want to succeed. You know, when I was buying competitors, the first one, More Exterminating, that company's actually bigger than mine. And, you know, it's kind of like the goldfish eating the bass.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Or the
and
Goliath.
that was a tough deal to put together. But fortunately, Arnold trusted me, and we worked it out. I gave him all the cash I had. I was zero.
You had no money left.
Zero.
I've been there, man.
This has got to work, because, you know, and so, but he worked with me on it, and we got it going, and we kept probably 95% of the customers during the transaction. And then it seemed like every time an opportunity came along, it's when I wasn't ready.
Never fails. It never fails. It never
I'm thinking, man,
fails.
if this give me another year.
I'll be looking at a lot for 5 years, and I'll be out of money, and they'll call and say, "Well, we've decided to sell you that lot." I think one of Roosevelt's quotes was, "Pleasure is in victories." No, see, happiness is in victories, not pleasure. Which is what you said. I think that's one of his quotes.
Yeah, and that's, to me, it just makes so much sense. You know, there's just so many people that live their whole life, one day I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna do it someday, and they just never get around to doing it. And then they don't have the success they could have had.
But now I've got some friends that seem to be real happy with that. They're just watching TV and
Hey, look,
and so maybe
it doesn't make
or
them
are
bad
they?
people.
Or are they?
It doesn't make them bad people, because I was talking to my wife the other day. You know, there's some people, being in pest control, I deal with all kinds
You
of
see
people.
them all.
Kinds of people. And there are some people that got a ton of money, they don't have any worries, but they're not happy. And then I go see other people, live in a little house, don't have much money, obviously, they're happy. So where would you rather be? You know,
Yeah.
where would you rather be?
I think maybe it's all just in your mind.
Yeah.
It may just be in a mental state.
I mean, I would rather be sort of, you know, have enough money where I can have some options, but have happiness at the end of the day.
Well, tomorrow morning, I've got to go to Polk County. Then I got to go to East Ridge. And I'll stop at Starbucks and get a coffee. And then I'll stop at Calfee's and get a biscuit and a little Coke. And I'll listen to a little radio on the way down there, check the job. Then I'll leave there. I'll go to East Ridge. Then I got to drop something off at downtown Chattanooga. Then I'm going to come back and probably eat lunch at Jordan's. And you just can't get much happier than that. I mean, that's what I like.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pretty day. I'll be back in here at 5 o'clock, check my messages, maybe check some emails. I mean, that's what. Now, if you didn't have that, I wouldn't be as happy going to, say, Six Flags or going to the beach, because there ain't nobody on the beach on a Monday.
That's true.
So I don't know what else there is. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is all there is.
It's different for everybody. You know, the things that you enjoy doing, somebody else may not. Same with me. Now, tomorrow, my day, I'm going to be at the office probably at 7:15 in the morning, and I'm going to meet with the management team at 8, go over anything that's happening that I need to know about, tell them some things I would like to see them do. And then I don't have a whole lot going on the rest of the day, but I'm going up at about 2 o'clock to UT because my son's first high school baseball game is going to be against Ringgold up at UT Stadium. So that's going to be fun. So yeah, there's nowhere I'd rather be, you know, get to see him play. And
you'd hate to wake up not having nothing to do and then just go to the thing because you don't feel like you've done anything.
Yeah.
Boy, 7:15, that's early, isn't it?
Well, considering what time I generally wake up.
You make coffee for them when they come in? You already have it made?
No, I don't. I let them kind of get their own. Some of these guys, they like these energy drinks.
Oh, man.
And everybody, and years back, my dad said about having coffee. He said, if you have coffee in the office, you know what happens? He said, everybody wants to sit around and drink coffee.
Yeah.
He said, you can't make any money doing that. They got to be out there killing something.
Yeah. You know, and those energy drinks, man, they're...
Yeah, I have never had one. Personally, I don't think I really need it. And it's just something else to get me wired up.
Well, those energy drinks, to me, they're too sweet. But I used to take a lot of them and spent 5 days in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
I've taken BC powders and those energy drinks. And I don't know if that's what did it, but I'm still taking the BC powders.
So apparently it's not that.
And maybe it's not that, but I just take them once a day or something. But it's hard to beat coffee. So do you eat on the road or you eat?
I'm trying to lose a little weight. Through the years, I have gained a little more than I need, and so the doctor has told me my knees would appreciate it if I lost about 25, 30 pounds, so I'm working on doing that. But yeah, during the old days, I would eat on the run. I would leave the house and, you know, when I had time, swing through somewhere, get a biscuit or
Pack of crackers.
yeah, just whatever I could get and eat it on the way. I didn't have a lunch hour. I just, between stops. That's just the way it is in this business. You just got to hit it and
If
go.
I can't stop and eat for 45 minutes, I just won't eat. I can't hardly eat on the run. It makes me feel poor
Yeah,
for some reason.
yeah.
I just soon not eat.
That's the thing. Some days I wouldn't even eat lunch, you know, just
Yeah.
be too busy, and then I'd eat when I got home at the end of the day.
I feel better when I don't eat lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've been doing lately, to try to cut it down to 2 meals a day. And that, by default, I'm going to save some calories, just not eat as much.
You know, I found out this. I know it sounds crazy, but like I ride bicycles.
Yeah.
And what I do is, and I don't ride till like 5:30 for 2 hours. I'm 3 days a week, and it doesn't mess up my job. But when I get like I'll start like in March, like this month it'll start. Weather's pretty, and I'll start riding more, and I'll start stuffing myself. I'll eat everything I can possibly eat.
Really?
And you get sick of eating, and you have the energy to work out, and you'll lose weight. I think it's just the opposite of slowing down eating. I say eat, eat, eat. Your body will get rid of what it don't want, and you'll have the energy to go, and the net result will be less weight.
Well, that may work. I've never tried that. It may be what I eat. And that's the thing with me. I've always been, I'm not really built for speed. You know, I've always been pretty strong, and I gain weight easy. I can drive by Crystal and gain a pound, you know.
You ever eat those little white donuts that's got the powder on them? Boy, they're good, aren't they?
They are good.
Which one's the best? Is it Hostess or which one's? There's one that's a little better than the other.
I don't know. Those Hostess are pretty good.
Boy, they're good, aren't they? The little bitty ones?
Yeah.
If you buy one at the Dunkin' Donuts, the big ones, they don't taste the same.
Yeah.
You got to get that little
They're not
Hostess.
as moist as those little
No.
ones.
Boy, and you can get the chocolate ones too, you know.
Yeah.
They're good, aren't they?
They're all
They're
better
good.
than they should be, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I found. All the things that I like are bad for you. And, you know, all the things like broccoli and asparagus that I'm not that wild about, that's what's good for you.
You know, broccoli is I think they said broccoli is man-made.
Really?
It's not even a...
Kind of one of those...
Yeah, it's one of those hybrid things, not even a... I think that's what somebody said. And, you know, carrots were first invented as a medicine.
Really?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that. You know, as far as vegetables, I like carrots pretty well, but, you know, I need to eat more of that. The doctor tells me to get my blood work where it needs to be. I had a blood clot a few years ago in my portal vein in my stomach. My stomach was hurting. Every time I ate, it would hurt, and I thought I had an ulcer or something. So going to the doctor, or the ER, they do a CT scan, said, you got a blood clot. And they admitted I was in the hospital for 3 or 4 days.
What did they do, blast it or something?
No, they had some kind of medicine they put me in, some kind of drip that was supposed to dissolve it. But I come to find out it takes several months to dissolve them. And so they never did really know what had caused it. But anyway, I've been a little bit on edge since then. I think I don't want any more of that because...
Well, you know, when I went to the doctor, they said they didn't know what caused it. But after I did my own research, I think it's what the old timers called a spastic colon.
Really?
Yeah, just people have them sometimes. Just your nerves get tied up in a knot, and that's what happened. And you know, but they said it looked like nothing ever happened.
Let's hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know how much of this we can control anyway, do you? I mean,
that's the thing I don't know. You know, when something happens and they can't really tell you why, how do you prevent it from happening again?
They don't know. It's like if I ask you, I said, do you think this? Why does these termites eat in this house? You just have to say, I really don't know, but they are.
Yeah, they just found it.
I mean, they found it, or will they go away on their own? Probably not, but maybe.
It's a little it's a little risky, but maybe.
You know, so they don't know. Just because a person's a professional doesn't mean they know.
It
just means they kind of got a little better
Yeah,
guess.
that's one thing I've always thought. The people that can admit they don't know something, I think you can trust them a lot more than these people that will never admit they're wrong. Because to me, a dumb person that doesn't know they're dumb, that's a dangerous person because they'll do things that they have no idea if they're doing the right thing or not. I had a guy that worked for me a few years ago, and when I hired him, he said, "I just want you to know that I don't read and write that well. I can't really spell that well." And I said, we'll work around it. And so we did. The ladies at the office always would double check things when he turned it in just to make sure that the spelling was right. And so I thought, he's a lot smarter than he thinks he is. He knows his limitations, and he's willing to admit them and do something about them. So he tried to improve as much as he could. But when you got somebody that just is not very smart, but they don't know it, they're going to throw their opinion at you, even though it's dead wrong.
I got a friend like that.
They don't have a clue that they're wrong, but they'll throw that opinion at you, and they'll just go headlong into something. They have no idea what they're doing. Those are the dangerous ones.
They call it narcissist.
Yeah.
Narcissistic. You can't hardly tell them.
No, you can't.
You don't know which ones are smart and which ones are just narcissistic.
They will argue with you, and okay.
You ever thought about, on generally most of your problems, the answer is the most obvious?
Yeah.
And it's very rarely not the most obvious. Like the car won't run. Well, the battery's dead or it's out of gas.
Yeah.
That's 95% of what it is.
And a lot of times in life, it's an obvious answer what the solution to the problem is, but it's not what you want to do. I can solve this problem, but that's really not what I want to do. So I'm going to look for another answer.
I was reading a book the other day, and my mind does not work on some details and some of the others, but the guy said, I think it was that philosopher Nietzsche that said, they said anxiety is worrying over things we conquered long ago. In other words, we already knew the answer.
Yeah.
We just anxiety over it. Something like that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are bad to second guess. They've already solved it. Well, am I sure I got that? I don't know. Should I have done that? And I'm like, I'm the exact opposite. Once I make a decision, rearview mirror, I'm moving on. If it comes back later, I'll deal with it again. If not, I'm not going to worry about it. And my wife is the exact opposite. She'll make a decision. Oh, was that the right decision? I'm like, hey,
my wife never will make one.
Well, my wife battles with it a little
Then
bit.
I do, and then I get in trouble for it. But do you ever wake up? You say you wake up at 5 o'clock. No alarm clock.
No,
just
no.
bing. You're
Sometimes I've set the alarm clock just to make sure, and I usually turn it off. I wake up before it goes off.
But what do you do for 2 hours?
I usually would doze back off. If I don't have to get up, I'll.
But when you got to be up there, when you got to be at the office at 7:15.
Oh, I usually get up and get in the shower and get ready, and then I'll make some coffee, go in there, look at emails, and just think over anything else that I might need to discuss with them. And because I already have a pretty good idea of what they're dealing with, they've usually told me, and I've tried to think it through. Okay, how's the best way to handle this? If we have a customer that's not happy or an employee,
And the customer maybe doesn't even know that you're the owner and you're concerned about it.
Yeah, a lot of times they don't. Used to in the old days, everybody knew me. Now very few people do. And so I'm trying to sort of make sure that everybody's taken care of. Sometimes an employee might have an issue, personal issue we need to deal with, and they need some time off or whatever. And back in the old days, if somebody was out, it was a big deal because we weren't going to get to work. And now we've got enough guys, we can split up their route, 10 or 15 per the other routes, and nobody's really struggling, and we can get everything done. So there are some benefits to having more guys, but it seems like there's at least one person out every day. It's not, but
Well, with
it seems that
32,
way.
there's going to have to be about every day.
And when you got 28 trucks, it seems like one's in the shop about all the time.
They all need
It's
oil.
either
They all need oil at least
getting oil
twice.
change or needing new tires. I'm wearing this tire places out now.
Well, I bought tires last week from Gobbles Automotive. You just got to have them.
Yeah.
It's just nothing you can.
When they're done, they're done. You
Yep.
can't say, well, I think I'll wait another month.
I usually wait another month. I spent $10 last week on pumping air into tire that was going bad, and I said, I took it down there and said, "Can y'all patch it?" They said, "We don't even want to drive it. You've got they're so low." So, what do you think we'll ever retire? Or you just plan on just keeping on going?
I'm going to do something. I think I'd go crazy if I didn't have something to do. And I still work every day in some capacity. I might work from home. I found I can get more done at home than I can at the office, because if I'm at the office, if something happens, they come tell me or want me to get involved in it. If I'm at home, they usually will text me about it if it's something important. But yeah, I'll do something. I don't know what, but I'll find something to keep me busy.
You may keep doing this, right?
Yeah, I'm sure
I mean, there's no exit plan right now, right?
No, I mean, my youngest son's a senior in high school. He's planning to go play baseball in college. He's got a couple of offers. And
what positions he play?
Well, he's a pitcher, shortstop. And he's been a pretty good hitter, but he's more of a average hitter, per average, not a power hitter. Well, first at bat, I think it's his second at bat of the scrimmage game last week up in Sweetwater. He hit a 3-run home run. So well, he's found the power.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But he's got a couple of colleges interested. He wants more, but we'll see.
Well, I didn't have any interested in me, so that's better than I'm doing. I did.
Yeah. He's got a few looking at him, so he's hoping he'll have a good senior year and he'll get a few offers that he wants to be closer. He'd like to go to Tennessee Wesleyan or Lee, somewhere a little closer to home.
Tennessee Wesleyan is pretty good, they say.
He's got one in Kentucky that's after him, and he really doesn't want to be almost 3 hours away from home.
See, Tennessee Wesleyan's away enough to where you can get an apartment, but not.
Yeah, he needs to grow up a little, but not 3 hours away from home.
No, I wouldn't want to be the 3 hours away. I'd be up there. Well, anything else?
No, I think you pretty well know my story now.
Well, it's been good talking to you.
Yeah.
Hey, how can anybody get a hold of you if they need pre-treating or any bugs?
Just give us a call at 698-7205 or look us up online at volpest.net. And you can get a little more information about the company, but we take customer service seriously. One thing that we're different with a lot of companies, we're local. A lot of these companies are selling out to the big national brands, and we're local. I mean, if you have a problem, we're right over here on Mimosa Drive. You can come to the office. Give me a call. I may not be there, but if you want to meet with me, give me a call. I'll meet with you, and we'll work out whatever the problem might be. Hopefully there's not a problem, but, that's one thing that you don't want to have to call a call center in India and argue with somebody you can't understand.
No, you turn left at Harry at the Indians to your place.
But you can call our office. We speak simple Southern over there. You can understand us, and we'll solve whatever the issue may be. And if you just have bugs you want rid of, give us a call. We'll get rid of them.
If you got anything that bugs you, call Erik Gardner.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, buddy.
Hey, good to see you.